So yeah, thanks everybody for having me. And that was a beautiful intro from Ryan. And as he mentioned, I am currently at Bupa as the head of employer brand and experience. So a pretty relevant title for our chat today. And I've been at Bupa for about 6 years now, and I come from a background of agency. So I've helped clients like AstraZeneca, Marks and Spencer, Jaguar Land Rover, British Airways, enhance their brand and their experience and attract brilliant candidates. And before that, I was in marketing. So just pure marketing, helping across lots of different industries, including aviation and media and lots of tech companies as well. So I've got a lot of experience of how to talk to different audiences and, as Ryan said, storytelling and through that. So, but today's focus is how employer brand and employee experience shape each other and why they're so intrinsically linked. And you'll have to forgive me. I'm sitting at my husband's computer and he's a lot taller than me and his camera's up here. So it looks like I'm not looking at it. It's because I'm too short. So hopefully you can see me okay. So let's start with a bit of a provocative statement. And I'd love to see any notes in the chat as well in response to this. So if your employee's experience doesn't match your employer brand, which one do people believe? So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, but let's unpack it a little bit more with some data points. So 64% of consumers stop purchasing from a brand after hearing news of poor employee treatment. 96% of companies believe employer brand and reputation can positively or negatively impact revenue. And 50% of candidates will not work for a company that has a negative reputation, regardless of salary and benefits on offer. So those are some pretty big stats, but what does this look like in the real world? So I think a couple of these are going to look familiar to you. So over there at Amazon, their employer brand is customer obsessed, they're high tech, they're efficient, they're employee focused. But as you can see from that news article, reports of grueling conditions, surveillance, unrealistic productivity targets, doesn't sound super efficient, does not sound super employee focused. Then in the middle there with Uber, fast-paced, innovative, disruptive tech company as their employer brand, but then reports of toxic culture, a lack of diversity and HR mishandling claims, and absolutely does not sound innovative at all. And over at Google, open, inclusive and values-driven employer brand, but internal process overhandling of sexual harassment and controversial projects. So absolutely does not sound values-driven. So that's a huge misalignment between the brand and what the companies are out there saying that they are and the actual experience of their employees when they get into the business. And that misalignment, as you can see here, has massive repercussions and huge real world effects to revenue, to people's jobs. The Uber CEO was obviously let go after this. So it's really important that we get this right. And to the employer branders listening, this is not going to feel revolutionary, but our employer brand is the promise that we make and our employee experience is the reality that we offer. And those two things together should be our credibility. It's the trust, it's the reputation that we have. So our brand attracts and the experience delivers. But actually one can't succeed without the other. If the employee experience isn't good, it doesn't matter what brand we wrap around it, because as soon as people get into the business, they're going to feel that misalignment. And vice versa, that there's only so much we can say as a brand. We can't be out there making things up. The employee experience has to be there. It's the thing that we create the brand around. So we can actually think of it as this beautiful infinity loop. So we attract and make people aware of the opportunity, the why would you come and work for this business? Why is it different to that one? A great example I always like to give here is if you think of Jaguar Land Rover, they make Range Rover and they make a Land Rover Discovery. And I'm not a car person, but on paper, very similar cars. They're both big, 4 wheels, they've got big boot spaces. But Why would I choose a Range Rover over a Land Rover Discovery? And that's that beautiful why. We're not choosing a Land Rover Discovery to go and, roll up to the beautiful restaurant in the city. We're going on an adventure. We're going camping. That's that why. And they build that product around that why. That's the what that goes into it. So we attract and make people aware of our business. They engage with us, they consider us, and then ultimately, hopefully, if we're right for them and they're right for us, they apply. Then they go through into actually having an experience as an employee. And that starts in that application process, that starts in that recruitment process, goes through into onboarding, and then it's their experience that they have when they're working. They need help to do their work. They need to be communicated to. They want to learn and development. Ultimately, we want them to become an advocate. And that advocacy might look like a barbecue telling your friends, hey, I love working at my job. And that friend might tell their friend, yeah, I've heard really good things about this company. My friend loves working there. It might look like a Glassdoor review. And it might look like a traditional advocacy program. We're out there asking our employees to tell their networks, to tell their contacts, yes, this is why you should work here. These are the stories that we can tell. And that storytelling piece is really fundamental to how we work as branders and as marketers. It's the bread and butter. It's how we become that mirror and become that voice for our business. But the storytelling has to be rooted in that reality. And otherwise, that's completely where that misalignment comes from. So let's look at a case study from Bupa. So we had a challenge a number of years ago around our contact center. And anyone who has a contact center, I'm sure you can feel our pain. But people were applying for a role and then getting into the business and going, I really thought this was going to be super flexible. And particularly during COVID times, this was a challenge for us because we actually moved our contact center to remote work. And people thought, great, I'll be able to pop up at 4 and go and get the kids. I'll be at home all the time. I can sort of do the calls as I'm doing other stuff. But actually, the reality of the role is that it's very structured. It's not flexible at all. You have specific times that you need to be on the phones. Your breaks are really regimented. And that's how we need to work as a business to make sure our contact center is servicing our customer. But it just wasn't the perception that people had. So the solve for us was that storytelling for reality. We created a series of assets, and the big sort of hero asset was this story, Damla's story, the day in the life. What did it take her to do her job? She talked about all the fabulous things, all the challenges, why she loved doing it. But she also talked about that rigid structure and like why this is so important to being successful in this role, to be there at your desk, knowing that you're there for your customers, and why that's actually rewarding for her. So there was lots of positives in the video, but it was absolutely talking about if you aren't prepared to have that structure, this is not the role for you, and that's okay. So what the result of that was, through really simple storytelling, through just revealing that reality of the role, we actually reduced the turnover within that first 3 months, which is great. Massive impact on the candidate and employee experience, and also a fantastic result for the business because it lowers our costs because we're not out there hiring people every 3 months. Great result. But what we're talking about there is kind of the bread and butter model of employer brand. We're using comms, we're using campaigns, we're attracting people into something that we're describing what's already there. It's just, as I said, that mirror to reality. We are the messenger. And I think there's a step further we can go in employer brand and as people team colleagues as well. I think we can step into that role of maker, into this new model of co-designing the experience and evolving to have that seat at the table to help make what we're out there, help make it true. And so how we're doing this at Bupa is we're rethinking our messaging. We're rethinking how we structure our messaging. So if anyone's a fan of Simon Sinek, like me, this diagram will look very familiar. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. but what you do brings it to life. So you can't have one without the other. That's that brand and that experience. So when we're looking at this diagram, our EVP promise, you might call it your lead line, you might call it, the promise that you make, the why. That piece in the middle, our EVP, is always there. And then the traditional kind of structure is that you have your pillars around that. That's that how. That's how we deliver on that promise that we're making. But then the next layer out is a new one for us at Bupa. This is we're calling them our people products, but you can think of them as the what. It's the tangible offerings, like benefits, like development, that go into making our EVP real. This is what goes into that why, to make the why powerful, to make it real for you. So what our people products look like, this is for us, this is unique to us. You could do it in a totally different way. But for us, our purpose is to help people live longer, healthier, happier lives and make a better world. And we do that through empowering our people in a number of different ways. So the first one is, as an organization, we have a huge focus on purpose, sustainability, and giving back. So we have a foundation that that supports lots of charities. We have initiatives like our Better World and our Healthy Cities. If you've been on our LinkedIn recently, you've seen us out there getting up our steps and supporting that good cause. And people can, for example, take volunteer days to go and support charities that they care about. We also have our career momentum bucket, which is talking about that career growth and the learning and development opportunities that we have at Bupa. So great examples of this are our global mobility program that we have, our emerging careers programs, and we also have a campus, or I guess a in-house academy where you can come and learn and grow and develop. The next one across is our culture. We've called it Culture Beat because we have a heartbeat, we're a pulse. But it's talking about our values, our DEI. We have employee networks that support core groups that are really important to us. It's even things like our pulse score and making sure that we're continuously improving and doing what we need to do to make our culture the best it can be. And then the last one is always the interesting one for me, because I think this one can often be thought of, this is what our EVP is. It's the benefits and the perks. So for us, it's things like our wellbeing program. We have health insurance subsidy, even things like parental leave offerings and flexible working. So that's kind of the hygiene stuff that go into this holistic offering of why you would choose Bupa as an employee. And there's lots of different elements in there, lots of different teams that go into making this true. So we don't own this. This is the reality that we reflect back to our business. But where we're moving as an employer brand function, and where I see this space moving for us, is to really feed into what's going in the what that helps make our why more powerful. So if we go back to that diagram from right at the start, where we were looking at the employer brand promise that we make versus the employee experience reality that we offer, that was that credibility line across the middle. But where we're looking now is, first of all, what do we want to be known for? What makes sense as a brand for us to be known for? And as I said, we have our purpose, which is to help people live longer, healthier, happier lives and make a better world. So we're already doing lots of things in that space. But we also have an ambition to be the most customer-centric healthcare company in the world. So what else could we be doing in that employee offering that helps our employees, that then helps them do their job even better, to make our offering for our customers even better? Because that's ultimately that link and goes back to that idea of who we are as a business and all of those impacts that it can have. And then the bit at the top there is looking at what's the white space in the market? What are our peers? What are our competitors doing? Where's the space that we could play that could give us that opportunity to go, actually, there's a little bit of something there that would give us an even stronger point of difference, that could make our message in the market even clearer about why you would come back and join Bupa. And on the left there is sort of listed out all of the different kinds of research that go into this cycle. So our bread and butter, of course, EVP research with our employees. all that reputation data, NPS scores, all of that good stuff. That's, the bread and butter that goes into making up that why. But then also looking at your business strategy, for us, our mission and our ambition, and looking at that market and competitor research and sort of looking at where's the opportunity for us to go even harder. So to give you an example of this and to bring it to real life, I've got an example from Mecca. So Mecca have a reputation as a consumer brand for having really premium products, premium pricing that goes with their premium products. They famously do not do sales, and it's all built around brand loyalty. But to support that, they really need their teams to know the product. When a customer comes in and says, hey, I have this issue, I'm looking for something that helps me with this, the team need to know what they're talking about to be able to say, hey, not only should you choose us as a brand, but you should choose this product and pay more for it because we know what we're talking about and because we can offer you not just a premium product, but a premium service. So what they did is they have really intensive employee training sessions. And they noticed that the stores that have higher completion rates in their training sessions actually have higher revenue, and they have they have better sales coming through because their employees are super confident. They know what they're talking about. They generally have lower stress, and they're just more empowered to be able to knowledgeably sell the products and meet that business strategy and mission that they're going for. So it's a really beautiful example of that cycle of how your employee experience goes back to shape who you are as a brand, and that ultimately impacts your revenue as well. So beautiful job from Mecca. I will continue to spend all my money there. So to bring it back home to Bupa, what are we doing? So I've said a couple of times now that our purpose is to help people live longer, healthier, happier lives. And I mentioned our wellbeing program. So we have a really intensive wellbeing program that we offer to our employees. It helps them with lots of different facets of their health. It's not just physical health, it's mental, it's social, it's digital, it's financial, lots of different facets of how you can be a well-rounded, healthy person. And for us, that's really about as well that link between our people need to be their best and we want to help them be their best so that they can be their best for their customers and be empowered to be their best for their customers. Another great example of this link is we do an annual customer expo, and that's actually a customer expo for our employees. We invite them to come and experience our products, to learn about them, spend a day either virtually in our Melbourne head office, interacting with team members from different spaces across the business because we've got such a broad offering, or accessing it virtually across a week of different activities and engaging things that you can do to help them learn more about who we are as a business, what our customers are experiencing from us, and also then feedback into what are some ways that we could make that better, and how can, now that you've experienced that, how can you feedback and make that customer experience even stronger through offering a great employee experience. So that's really, those are two examples of how we really live up to our purpose for our employees and how that experience for our employees goes back to feeding into who we are as a brand. But then the other thing that we have as an employer brand, as I mentioned, we've got a really big breadth of products and offerings that we have at Bupa. You've probably heard of us for health insurance. We also have aged care. We also have a huge clinical services arm. So optical, dental. We've just launched ourselves into medical centres as well and mental health clinics. So that scale goes across lots of different verticals, but also we're a global business. And as I said, we've got this huge ambition to be the most customer-centric healthcare company in the world. So how do we empower our employees to be coming along on that journey with us and to have that experience that helps us get there? So I mentioned we have, it's called Bupa Campus. It's our in-house learning academy, and it's quite new for us and it's still a developing thing. But we have 3 physical sites globally, that people can come into. They can fully immerse themselves in learning a range of different things. In our UK campus, for example, you can actually come in as a dental hygienist and learn on the tools within our campus. In our Melbourne campus, we have flagship leadership programs that help not just those corporate employees go and become leaders in the business, but also if you're a clinician, you've got that opportunity to go from a registered nurse in a care home through that leadership journey, and then even step over into a advisory role or a leadership role within our corporate space. So something really unique that you can do within Bupa that we can offer through our employee experience. And that ladders back into who we are as a brand and why you might choose us over someone else. So it all works in that cycle. And there's lots of things that we're looking to do in that space to continue enhancing that. And as an employer brand team, the way that we're feeding back into that is to look into that market and that opportunity and go, hey, these are the bits that we're seeing lots of response to. These are the things that we're seeing the gaps and the opportunity. How can we work together as a business with those teams that own those spaces to make that even more powerful? And one of the ways will always be storytelling, of course, but how can we help to influence that and to build that and become those co-creators in the same way that you might see that in a product cycle? So to wrap it up there, when you have alignment, there's not just positive impacts on things like your retention, it's also increased business performance, it's cost avoidances, it's a stronger positioning in the market, and it's improved reputation as well, which goes back to those stories that we were seeing at the start from some of those big brands. When you have misalignment, though, you've got difficulty retaining that top talent. And when you're trying to build as a business, and that goes back to your business strategy, you really need that top talent to do that. So you've got to get that alignment right. It can damage your reputation. And that, again, goes back to those barbecue conversations, like really simple things like that. Word of mouth is so powerful. If someone says, actually, I know a friend that had a really bad experience with them, not only will it make them think twice about working there, it might make them think twice about buying something from that company. And that's lots of trust that is very hard to get back. And that absolutely affects both your recruitment and your consumer perception. So made it with 5 minutes to spare. I'd love some questions if you've got them. And absolutely anything around what we're doing at Bupa or any thoughts on that.
Amazing. Thank you, Meagan. Really powerful insights, I think, into how brand and culture work hand in hand. As we're waiting on a few questions popping up, I've got a few for you. And sure. I'll mention to everyone who's logged in right now, we've got people joining from YouTube, I think from LinkedIn Live, our website, and also StreamYard. So if you have the comment feature on there, pop your question into the comment feature and we'll see if we can get to it. But geez, that was awesome presentation. I think you've shown how you've really put the theory, I think, into practice at Bupa. And I liked how you use your mission and purpose to be kind of part of the overall culture story, and getting your people to experience the customer side. I know it's a really obvious one sometimes, but it's a really common challenge that businesses have, is kind of allowing their people to experience that kind of customer side. And it's often missed and put into the too hard basket.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, like, look, the challenge isn't over for us either. We're still definitely building into that space, but I think we're lucky at Bupa as well, because our purpose is so strong, and through all of our research, it genuinely is the reason why people choose us, and why our employees stay and like working with us. So it's an easy sort of leap for us to make, which is nice.
Well, I know you mentioned there that's a kind of complex business. It's a large organization. You've got lots of different roles, so many different people, lots of different locations, and then products and verticals. It seems like instead of leaning away from that, you've leaned into it. So yeah, kudos to you for kind of embracing the complexity. So yeah, we've got time for a few questions. There's one that's popped up. I think it's on the screen just now. It is, what are some good ways to get your employees acting as ambassadors?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And one of the things I think is always an interesting one here is, how do you incentivize people to do that? And a lot of it gets gamified, or it's, go in the competition and you win, whatever it might be. But I actually think community is a stronger and more long-lasting way to get them to do that. So we're starting a pilot program that's actually just a really small group of people, and getting them to sort of feed off each other in how they're doing the work, and give each other tips, give each other feedback, and hype each other up. And it's this really beautiful thing where people get excited and they feel proud, and a lot of that pride to be a part of something like that, and to be even just invited to be a part of that, rather than having to sort of go like, well, we'll kind of like trick you into doing it by offering you a sort of short-term reward. This is a longer term sort of thing, but you do have to find people that are comfortable with doing it. And I definitely recommend going smaller rather than going big, because it's also, advocacy is really hard, and it's really hard to keep the momentum and the consistency. So yeah, start small and then get bigger.
I like that. And I think sometimes, weirdly enough, in kind of particularly bureaucratic organizations, they get a little bit scared or fearful about what employees might do or how they might show up. But sometimes just giving people permission to do that, saying, you are cool to do this, and making, removing some barriers can help people get on board.
Yeah. And one of the things that we're trying to encourage as well is, rather than, because I think organizations can also go like, oh, well, let's get this leader and let's get this, because we trust them to say the right things, and there's a little bit more accountability potentially. But actually, people tend to respond, like they don't respond as well to, if the CEO says, hey, we're great, trust me. It's just not, it just doesn't work as well. But if the CEO comments on somebody else's post, or they like it and gives it that boost that way, that's a totally different thing. So that's what we're sort of trying to encourage our leadership to do, is rather than being the voice, it's lifting up voices.
Amazing. Excellent. We might have time for just one more question. We've got a few here, so I'm going to have to selectively choose one. What we got? All right. So how does having a marketing mindset help you think about employee experience?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I get asked this question a bit, because obviously with my marketing background and coming across into employee experience, and I think it goes back to that idea of thinking about it as an audience, and not thinking of, and when you think about an audience, when you're trying to sell a product, you don't go, okay, like I want this person to buy my socks. They've bought my socks. See you later. You think about that full customer life cycle of, okay, they've bought one pair of socks. How do I get them to keep coming back and choosing our socks every time? And it's that full funnel that doesn't end once there's a conversion, which I think is, if we're thinking about it like talent acquisition professionals, it can be that kind of like, you're in the door, you're someone else's problem now. We have to think about it like a product cycle.
Amazing. Excellent. I know we're at time now, so thank you for being so succinct with that answer. You must have taken a look at the clock. Appreciate it.
No worries. And any other questions or any thoughts on this? I always love a chat, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, and happy to answer any other questions.